Hi, everyone. I'm Anise Kavanaugh, and I want to have a little bit of a heart to heart. I gave a keynote a couple of weeks ago to a group of chairmen and CEOs and a lot of really executive leaders in different kinds of companies. We're talking consulting companies, venture capital companies, services companies, all sorts of different companies. And as I always do after I give a keynote, after I leave, I always follow up and I check in and I want to know, like, what was the most important thing that you got from that message? What was the most important thing? What are you doing differently now because of the conversation we got to have? And obviously, of course, as always, what would support you more? And I have to tell you, it's been really interesting because the keynote was on activating the energy of our workforce. It was on creating cultural transformation. It was on really starting to look at the energy of our workforce versus the engagement, because engagement is a symptom of the energy of what's happening in an organization. It's a symptom of the energy of your workforce. It's a symptom of the energy of your leaders. Engagement's a symptom. So by the time we actually measure engagement, it's kind of too late. Engagement is a lagging indicator of what's going on versus energy is something that you can get in front of. You can be more intentional about it. You can change it in the moment. And we all individually have total responsibility and the ability to shift our energy when we've got awareness around it and we take care of ourselves and we do it differently. So part of the keynote was really starting to look at energy versus engagement, even though engagement's still important. I'm not dismissing that or diminishing that at all. It's super, super important, but it's just a piece. We also talked about how do you actually create culture change? And one of the things that's happening, it's so common that we keep seeing, and it's the reason why engagement is not shifting, is one, we're not measuring the energy, we're actually looking at engagement. But two, it's because we keep just changing the container of what we're doing to change culture. So for example, we have town halls where we talk about how important culture is. We put our values up on the wall saying that these are what our values are, and they're really important. We put our mission up, we put our purpose up, we put our vision up. That's all good. We do training. Companies bring in all sorts of different kinds of training to have hard conversations and to give feedback. They bring in motivational speakers to get everyone excited. They have retreats, they have offsites, they have all these things. They have all these containers to create change, to build better leadership, to strengthen the skills and capabilities of the workforce, which all of these things are important. But these are what I call containers. These are things that they are doing, containers they're putting their people in to do things differently, to learn new skills. But the thing that is not being addressed again and again and again, that is actually what creates sustainable and real change, the thing that's not being addressed is the people in the container doing the work. And more specifically, the IEP, or the intentions, energy, and presence, the energy of the people that are actually doing the training. So if you keep having town halls and you keep doing all these initiatives to change your culture, to make your leaders stronger, to have more innovation, it's great, but you have to go deeper than that. You have to start looking at what is the IEP of your workforce? What is the energy of your workforce? How are your people showing up? How are your leaders showing up? So this was the keynote that I gave. It's one that I've been doing more and more of. For those of you that know Contagious Culture and Contagious You, I created post-pandemic versions of those two talks that I used to give before the pandemic. I refined them. So there's a post-pandemic version. And then there's this other talk now that I'm doing, which is around how do you truly activate the energy of your workforce for true culture change, true transformation. So that was the keynote. So what was really interesting to me, and that just gives you a little bit of context, is that when I had a debrief with one of the key hosts that brought me in, and in my conversations since then with some of the people in that room, and I asked my question, so what was the most important to you? We talked about culture, we talked about engagement, we talked about the way you're measuring change, we talked about data, we talked about all these things. What was the most important thing? And so far, every single one of these people, executive leaders, has said, actually, the most important thing to me was the awareness of how I'm showing up and how am I actually creating culture? Where am I complicit in the way that I am creating the experience in the organization? What was most important to me was how am I showing up? That awareness was the most important thing. In that talk, I also did the 5 steps to intentional impact, which is part of the IP methodology. And we got to use that for them to look at how they were working with their teams or their direct reports or sales conversations or business development or whatever. So that was another piece that we did. But at the end of the day, the most important thing out of that was the awareness of how their intentions, energy, and presence, and the way that I walk them through the methodology, how that could shift the energy in the room, it could shift their experience, and it could shift the way that they were thinking about these things so they could go back and lead more effectively. So the reason why I'm bringing this up is because it's really had me thinking, because I had all these other structures that I was giving them, I was really excited about. And again, we're back to the basics. If you've known me, I've been doing this work for 22 years. I've been writing books about this for 10 years now. My stake in the ground from the beginning of time has always been that how we show up as leaders, how we take care of ourselves as leaders so we can show up really, really well. My stake in the ground has always been that that is the most important thing you're ever going to have in terms of culture change, your innovation, your results, your financial impact. The most important thing you have is your own ability to make sure that you are becoming the kind of leader who has space and grace and awareness and the presence to actually lead effectively, create culture change, create culture, period, and to innovate. So the question for you today is to really start to look at, how are you showing up? This is a responsibility for every single one of us, whether you're greeting people in the lobby of your organization or you're the executive, the CEO, the founder of the company. This opportunity and responsibility falls on all of us. However, the higher you up in leadership, the more responsibility you have to really make sure that you ask yourself these questions and that you create the space in your life and in your day-to-day in order to become the kind of leader who can hold space and lead well and create culture intentionally and innovate intentionally. And you're the kind of leader who can do that for yourself, but then also for your people. Where this does get tricky, I notice, is that the world is really busy. Everyone's really richly scheduled right now. And it's really easy to be focusing on, well, I've got a mandate to change culture. I've got a mandate for innovation. I've got a mandate for leadership. I've got to make my board members happy. I get it. But I promise you, your most important asset, your most important leadership responsibility is your ability to take a pause, take a step back, and ask yourself the question, who am I becoming? Am I becoming the kind of leader that I want to be? Am I showing up for myself and my people in a way that I feel very good about and that is going to help create the kind of organization and results we want? Am I showing up for myself in a way that makes me feel like I have space and I feel like I can actually be present? And essentially, am I showing up in a way that is going to really, truly help me create the results I want? This is the most important thing that you can be asking yourself right now. And with that comes the leadership superpower and the skill of self-care, which, again, if you guys have seen my talk that I gave for the Tugboat organization a while ago, we'll link that somewhere in these comments. But our ability to create care, our self-care is directly proportional to our level of impact that we can have in the world. And that was for a group of CEOs. I still get notes back about that conversation and how important that was. So this heart to heart is to all of you who are doing really, really hard work, to all of you executives and senior leaders who may be thinking that you've just got to focus on building the numbers and building the company and leading your people and all the many, many things that you do. This is an invitation and a reminder to take that step back and really look at, how are you taking care of yourself? What is it you need right now? Are you becoming the kind of leader that you want to be to lead in today's world? No matter how many ways we talk to companies, no matter how many rooms I'm in, no matter what industry, after 22 years, we keep coming back to the same thing, which is how we take care of ourselves, how we create space for ourselves, how we're responsible for the energy that we bring to the table, our intentional, energetic presence, and what we do with that. As a leader, that is the most important place to start, because if you get that right, everything else on top of that starts to sort itself out better. But you got to have yourself first. If this is interesting to you, please feel free to reach out. You want to talk about this? You want to talk about how to strengthen your own IEP as an executive? You want to talk about how to strengthen the IEP of your leadership team? Do you want to talk about how to take a step back and look at what you're trying to do from a cultural initiative standpoint, an innovation standpoint, a leadership standpoint, performance standpoint, and you're feeling really, really overwhelmed and busy and like there's a million things happening right now? You want to talk about that? let's talk and look at how do we set you up with a lab or something with where we can actually get you focused and correctly energized around what you're trying to do so we can create some space for you to decide what you need to do next. All in all, just reach out. Happy to talk with you if you're serious about being the kind of leader that really creates excellent space to lead, to create culture, and to innovate. So thanks for your time. Have a beautiful, beautiful day, and I will see you soon. Bye.